Alrighty, good morning. Happy Tuesday. JMart's with me. Wow, what a wild game yesterday with the Bills and the Jets. So we'll break that down in a second. But I got to fall on my sword for the Dodgers. Glad that the Bills props came through, but sorry for texting that in the middle of the afternoon if anybody played the stupid Dodgers. That was over 6-0. They hit the grand slam. I don't know if you saw it, Jay, but the Dodgers tried to come back, and I thought they were really going to. It was 6-3, and then they hit into a double play. They had a couple chances late. So anyway, Dodgers go down. That's that. Yankees beat the Guardians, and I don't know. We'll do more about that tomorrow. I don't feel like talking about the Yankees winning. Dodgers play tomorrow. Let's talk about the Bills Jets first, and then I want to recap the rest of the games. My main takeaway from the game yesterday was one team's got a really, really good quarterback, and the other one's got a guy that's just a little slow in the pocket. Offensive line, not great. Gotta give the Bills credit. I thought they got bailed out by a couple of really bad defensive pass interference calls, but kind of left the game thinking, yeah, the Bills will probably make the playoffs. I don't know if they can get over the hump. And this Jets is just like, man, just they can't make the plays at the end of the game or in tight spots and third downs. They beat themselves too many times. So it wasn't the most exciting game in the world, especially the second half, but came away just thinking Jets are done, man. If they were going to make it a year, I felt like they had to win yesterday. What about you, J. Mart? What was your takeaway?
I mean, my big one was look at Breece Hall without Nathaniel Hackett's play calling. It's like he looked like a completely different player, a completely different animal. I know I bet on it, but he just looked completely open. Like it looked like he felt more confident. Aaron Rodgers felt a little better in the pocket, knowing that he could like comfortably throw good checkdowns to his running backs. Like it felt like the whole offense had like a weight lifted off their shoulders. The issue does still come down to the fact that they don't really have a good offensive line. And Aaron Rodgers throwing interceptions late in the game is something we never used to see from him. It's a different quarterback from the prime Aaron Rodgers of the late 2010s.
So I agree with you, your point about Breece Hall. And then I thought one of the worst play calls, it probably didn't really affect the game because it was in the first half. But when they did that flea flicker, it was this arrogance as if they are good enough to do that kind of stuff. They really should have taken the approach that the Bills took yesterday. I was worried about my Josh Allen props as the Bills are just running. I mean, I could have ran for 5 yards on some of those holes. They're just wide open. And the Jets just, it's almost like they try to make it more difficult than it needs to be. And I feel like that's a Rodgers thing. I can't imagine the coordinator, like you said, it wasn't Hackett yesterday, it was the other guy. Dude, the quick 3-yard plays, they have playmakers, but then they do these play actions, they drop back, he takes sacks, and then they can't recover.
No, yeah, and you have Alan Lazard, you have Mike Williams. These are two big bodies. You should be able to script a way to get both of them involved in the game more. And I know Lazard had the big 50-yarder. He had a good game. Mike Williams does nothing. And you look at that, and he's just simply too – I know he gets hurt a lot, but he's just too good to not be out there contributing. You need to find a way.
They find him at the end of the – they find him at the end of the game, and then they get intercepted. Like, they're not on the same page at all.
And defensively – there is a serious issue. I don't know why everyone thought the D-line was really strong for them. It's bad. Like, they can't defend the run. The 49ers did it to them last week or week one. They need to work on that. It is a serious issue that's not going to just solve itself.
No, they lost a couple of edge rush, a couple of guys that set the edge for, on the defensive side. And they're not as strong up the middle. I mean, Mosley's older, and they don't have a ton of great linebackers. They're more of a finesse defense where their secondary is tight. I mean, the reason why, Allen's props were the way they were yesterday, I snuck out of there with the win, but it's because those corners always blanket the Bills receivers. They just do. Allen's got terrible numbers against them. The logic was he'll throw the ball to the backs and the tight ends. Ended up not needing to throw as much because those two running backs were just, gashing them. So Bills beat the Jets. I feel like we're in the same position we were with the AFC last week, which is how do you make the argument that the Chiefs, Texans, Bills, and Ravens aren't going to win that division? The one argument was, well, let's see if the Jets beat the Bills on Monday night. It didn't happen. So out of those 4 teams, let's start our recap there. Who's the most susceptible after another week of football? If I said one of those AFC leaders doesn't win the division, which one are you going to plunge on?
It'd be right now it has to be the Texans, just because the Joe Flacco Colts look pretty fun. They're a pretty interesting team. I didn't really see this coming, but you are in a position now as the Colts where you do have to think, is it worth trying to develop Richardson this year if Flacco is just looking this good? It's a scary spot to be in.
But didn't you come away from last week, though, giving the Texans even more credit for how they dismantled the Patriots without Nico? So, yeah, you say the Colts look good, but it's hard to think that they're going to be able to catch the Texans.
No, it's an outside shot, but I don't see the Ravens losing right now. They look immaculate. The Chiefs are, again, it's the Chiefs. They just win. It's never pretty. I think were they on a bye this week or?
Yeah, they're on they're at San Francisco this week. So
that's the big test. That's the big test. Yeah, is if they can win that. But no, I still think it's the Chiefs. They aren't going to lose that division. I know the Chargers have been a pretty fun team, but again, you just trust the Chiefs, and then maybe their CJ Stroud just somehow gets hurt, and then it just ends up being an open South. But it is in a position where you kind of know 4 teams who are going to make the playoffs in the AFC.
Yeah, it felt that way with the Bills beating the Jets yesterday. I don't know if I'm 1,000% writing off the Dolphins. Might be the last one. They said Tua was going to play again. They play my Colts this week at Indianapolis. That I won't say an elimination game in October, but if the Dolphins are going to make a move, that feels like a game that they should win coming off the bye. But yeah, the Flacco Colts, I don't think it will be the Flacco Colts moving forward. Did you see, I don't know if you saw McAfee interview Flacco yesterday, but McAfee basically said like 5 times that, oh, you're the backup here. And Flacco like wouldn't acknowledge it. It was a very interesting conversation because, this is not, I don't think the Colts could win the Super Bowl regardless, right? I don't think that's a strong take. And Richardson he's got to have a shot here. But again, all the players want Flacco. They might not say it out loud, but if you're a receiver, offensive lineman, it's a hell of a lot easier when you know that guy's going to drop back and get the ball out on time.
No, I feel like with Flacco, like the optics of his situation in Baltimore and just constantly kind of getting benched, because he should be a starting quarterback in the NFL. I think he's good enough. I think there are plenty of quarterbacks out there that are plenty of teams that could use him, and he's better than a lot of quarterbacks right now. It's just the fact that his career kind of petered out in Baltimore the way it did, that he didn't get that second win that you saw like Stafford get, like Kirk was able to get.
He tried to get Smith. No, you're right. He went to Denver and they gave him the starting job, and then they kind of bailed on him. They didn't have a really good team. Then he ended up in New York, kind of the same thing. And then last year he validated that because they had a good team in Cleveland. He was the perfect quarterback for it. There's not one Browns fan in the entire world who's like, I wishes Flacco was the quarterback right now after what they have to go through each week. So, yeah, the Colts are hanging around. What about this Broncos-Charger game? I made the point yesterday that I thought that was more of an indictment of the Chargers having a bye week and the Broncos just kind of being tired. They won 3 in a row. I actually felt better about the Broncos after that game because of the way they came back. Did you come away from that game with an opinion on the Broncos? Did you feel stronger about the Chargers after that? Or are you more in my camp, which was, I think it was just good timing for the Chargers, considering they were coming off the bye and Denver was tired?
I mean, I think there was some fatigue the way that the Chargers just ran out to such a big lead. Denver looked a little sleepy early on, but Denver's defense is still incredible. They were able to clamp down, allow Denver to come back into the game. Bo Nix hasn't been the prettiest quarterback by any means. It's been ugly at times, but he is keeping his team in games at least, and that's really all you can ask for, especially with the skill position players around him. He doesn't have much. So the fact that they are able to hang in it with teams like the Chargers, with teams like the Raiders, which is, again, I still think it's impressive that they're even staying in those games. I do think that the Broncos, there is a path moving forward that can be pretty exciting. They're just going to need to fill up on some more skill position guys because they don't have it's not good. It's not competitive enough.
Yeah, I think Nix is the type of quarterback where that dink and dunk style, it works for him, which is the opposite of Richardson that we were talking about for the Colts. Like Nix, if you just give him the skill players, he'll be fine. Make the argument you put Nix on the Colts and he would look really well because they have a lot of good weapons. It's easy to get the ball out. Broncos not as much. Broncos go to the Saints this week. I find that's the Thursday night game. That would be a very interesting game as Peyton goes back to New Orleans. All right, let's go around the league. Let's go. I feel like we'll pick up on the same topic we did last week because we were talking about could we get 4 teams from the NFC North, and the Vikings didn't play, so they didn't do anything to hurt their chances. Lions had the best win of the week. I still don't understand what the hell happened to Dallas. They win by 50. The Packers having a dominating win. They're probably considered to have the best roster out of anybody in the NFC North now that Hutchinson went down for the Lions. And the Bears, all they did was just destroy Jacksonville and just do what they need to do. So they're 4-2. They're going to get a bye. All right. Is one of these teams not going to make it, or are we going to put all 4 teams in the North?
Someone's going to fade. One of these teams is just going to hit a wall and fade. What the Bears are doing right now is they are beating teams that they need to win against. They're not dropping against bad teams since the Colts game. The Colts game was a tough one, but the Colts didn't look that bad against Chicago. But since that game, you've watched the Bears just take care of business. It's looked really good too. They look like a well-oiled machine. They haven't been playing the best teams. That is another argument to make. But they're not like tripping up on themselves. They're making sure to go out and have good performances against bad teams. If I had to guess, it probably still is the Bears. I love the Bears. If we're being realistic here, they are the team most likely to trip up. I can see the Packers somehow doing it, and I can definitely see the Vikings doing it. I can't see the Lions falling out right now. They look incredible.
Even without Hutchinson, you don't think that really?
I think they're just so good offensively. Like they're going to lose games that they shouldn't lose now. He's such a big factor. They are going to have shootouts that they just end up on the bad side of. But I think they're so good offensively. They're so talented offensively that I think they can just win enough to at least make it at this point.
Yeah, it's a funny world to live in, and to say that Detroit's offense, and now I'm going to go to Tampa Bay's offense with Goff and Baker, are efficient, dynamic, dare I say unstoppable. Like, I don't know what's going on down in Tampa Bay. The Ravens are going to head there on Monday night. That should be must-see TV because the Ravens defense has been leaking in the secondary. Baker's on fire. Somehow the Bucks. I should have looked this up. Is there any game that a team has been shut out for 3 quarters and then scored 27 points in 1 quarter? Because that's what the Saints did somehow. So they're just, to me, I came away from that game thinking the Bucks are really, really, really good. It feels like the Lions in a lot of ways, right? The offense is just very dynamic. So you're still high on the Lions. Let's go over to the South with the Bucks and the Falcons. Seems like things are kind of shaping up there as Carolina and the Saints are a couple notches behind. Atlanta had a good win against Carolina. Do you think where do you see the trajectory for both teams in the same spot, Falcons and Bucks, or do you think one of them, is lacking?
I think it'll be a 2-team race through the rest of the season. The Falcons stumbled out the gate. You had to learn how to play with Kirk Cousins. It was completely different from the previous quarterbacks they'd had. He's just you have to learn how to play around him. They have now. The run game looks incredible. They just had 2 rushers go for, I think Bijan might have been a little under 100, but I think it was 200 yards combined between 2 backs. That's a big game. And
Algiers a tough back.
No, yeah, and then you look at Tampa. I mean, Baker has adjusted from having really good games and really bad games to a mix of both in the game, which is huge for trying to win games. Like he threw 3 interceptions, but then he still went out there and I think threw 5 passing touchdowns and was the reason that Tampa was able to just stomp in the 4th quarter. He is good enough to win the division, and I'm really happy for him because 2 years ago it looked like he was probably never going to start again, and now he's in a really good spot to maybe even get a bye in the NFC.
He is in that category, and it's hard to like him. It's easier to like him now because he's gone from the Browns, but when he was in Cleveland, we didn't like him at all. But he is in that category, and these are my favorite players, the ones where you talk shit to and they play 10 times better. Like, I'm sure you saw what Texas did to rub it in his face when they beat Oklahoma on Saturday. Did you see that?
Yeah, no, and he was like, I would have gone to Texas. Like he basically told them, he was like, I'm from Texas. I wanted to go to Texas.
Right. So you see, like, there's certain people, the more pressure. And when you think of Brady, because that's the first one that comes to mind, and now it's Mahomes. But Baker's in that category where at the end of the game, pressure on the line, you kind of want the ball in his hands. And I love Josh Allen. I was betting on him yesterday, but my God, he makes you – it's just nothing's on time. Like, he tried to throw the game away yesterday with that fumble. I mean, the Bills recovered it, and then they get the touchdown with Dawson Knox to get my prop bet. But basically, he just throws the ball away. And I don't even know what he was doing on that play. There's too much of that. I'm not saying Baker's better than Josh Allen, but if you told me the game was tied with 7 minutes left in the 4th quarter and Baker was already having a decent game, I'm like, man, I just prefer things to be done on time. Mark Schlereth, one of my favorite analysts on TV, says it all the time. He's a guard, right? So this is how offensive linemen think, like, can it just be on time? Like, we run plays, we have practice, and Lamar is the exception to the rule because offensive lines, like if you're going to be Lamar, that's fine. Roethlisberger had that. Russell Wilson had. There's a handful of quarterbacks who extend the time that the offensive line doesn't matter. It doesn't bother them as much. But generally speaking, they want you to drop back, get rid of the ball, and Baker does that really well. Him and Goff. It's just funny how football works. It's about coaching. The offensive assistant for the Bucs is Tom Moore. He's not the coordinator. He doesn't call the plays, but he was there when Peyton Manning was a rookie. Baker talked about him last offseason. There's certain guys that just communicate really, really well. He seems like one of them because whatever is being told to Baker is working. So, all right, NFC South. Let's do the West because I can't get it right. Tell me to get rid of my Seahawks bets now because I don't know, man. That was the game I was the most wrong about. Still bothers me because the Seahawks just don't look good at all. And I don't know if I have to admit that they're just not good. So you don't have any money invested in the Seahawks, so you won't hurt my feelings. Just go ahead. Are they done and the Niners are just going to win this division, or what do you think?
I think if you're betting on the Seahawks to make the playoffs, they're probably a playoff team. They've looked really good at times. Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet is a great pairing, and Geno has looked good in some games. He's also looked really bad. The defense has looked a little questionable sometimes. I do think the 49ers are back to rolling. It looks just like if they just pulled two other running backs just out of nowhere, and now they just have another incredible back to back up Jordan Mason now that he might be hurt. Didn't
Purdy look? My takeaway from that game was I know Purdy looked great in the Super Bowl, like he just did. If they win that Super Bowl, it's a completely different narrative. I thought he looked great. I mean, he extended plays against Seattle last week. I think it's the perfect spot for the Niners to beat the Chiefs. I will not bet any money. It's against my constitution to bet against Patrick Mahomes, but I think it's a good spot for the Niners.
I do too. I think you're seeing, again, the pass and the rush working. You're right. Purdy looked incredible. When he gets a rhythm going, he really does feel like a confidence quarterback. Once he gets the confidence going, he starts playing better. And I think that Kansas City is going to try and shake that early, and they do have the guys that could potentially do it. But if they can keep a clean pocket for Purdy all game, I mean, he's just going to get better as the game goes on.
All right, so let's not count Nick Sirianni because I don't even consider him a head coach or a grown man or an adult of any sort, and I don't want to continue to belabor the point on there. Is the worst coach in the NFL Antonio Pierce? I mean, what the hell is going on with the Raiders? They ruined my Sunday afternoon. I was in a pretty good mood. It's 3-2. And then I'm like, I got the Raiders +3 and under, and I'm like, Pierce is clapping when he shouldn't be clapping. They're so disorganized. Besides Pierce, if you don't want to just hammer in with me right this second, who's the worst coach in football? Who, when you're like watching, you're just like, what in God's name is going on over there?
I don't really know what Gerard Mayo's doing sometimes. I know it's a first-year head coach, but I don't really know what the plan is sometimes. I don't think he knows what the plan is sometimes. He's a great defensive mind. The Patriots have looked good at times on defense. I don't think he's a head coach. It's just how it is. The game managing is harder for a lot of defensive-minded coaches typically. They're better at just calling the plays and culture, but when it comes to like similar with Kirby Smart, game managing, not the best at it, but all the other skills he's incredible at.
All the plays on defense right now?
I think technically they're saying that someone else is calling the plays, but I think it's like, who's really calling the plays. But when it comes to game managing, that's where defensive coaches typically struggle because they're not coded that way. That's not the way defenses work. I think we're seeing that issue with Mayo. It's just not there. He could learn it. I could be wrong, but I don't really see it happening.
I thought you make a great point. I don't know what the Jets are thinking. You don't make the defensive coordinator the head coach. You don't have any smart analytical guy that can just be the figurehead head coach for the Jets. Instead, you got Ulbrich doing it. And now the defense is just getting gashed because it's hard enough to coach defense and make the adjustments on defense. I watched McDonald do it for the Ravens last year, not for the Seahawks right this second. But the Ravens would give up an opening drive, and then that would be it. McDonald would go over there, look at this, look at that. Next thing you know, the team is shut down. Ulbrich doesn't have the ability to do that. He's too worried about Rodgers and what the hell's going on with the offense. Man, the Jets are a dumpster fire. I really wish I just bet the Bills yesterday. Although, I really think it was the ref's fault. I mean, they called 2 pass interference. Especially the one interference.
The flags were absurd. There is no world where there needs to be that many flags. These are 2 good defenses. Like you're just looking for an excuse here. I get maybe there was a little bit of contact every play. Maybe that's a sign to just let it go at a point. Like it's.
But then they didn't give. And I'm rooting for the Bills, but they didn't give. Garrett Wilson was being held in the back of the end zone. They didn't give it. So, not to give Rodgers any things to. Not like he's listening, but not to give him any more fuel to the fire. But I also couldn't believe after the game that he like acknowledged that we missed 2 field goals as like part of the reason we lost. It's like
no, you threw an interception in right when what game on the line, you threw a pick. It's your fault. I mean, you can you missed 2 field goals, they missed 1 though. So it's like and
he missed an extra point.
Yeah, and it's
unbecoming also for the quarterback to. We all watched the game. Yes, we know he missed 2 field goals. Thanks for telling us. Like, what was the point of that? How about your lucky Hail Mary at the end of the first half? You guys could have lost the game by 30 points. Like, that was where that game was headed. They're down 10. Buffalo's going to get the ball to start the second half. If anything, the Jets got bailed out kind of on a lucky play. But, hey, he's done it 4 times. So, all right. That's it for the – oh, sorry. Sorry about that. All right, so lost my train of thought there for a second. Wes, we kind of started with the Seahawks there, and we rounded up to get back to the Jets again. But, yeah, the Niners look like the best team out there. What about in the East? Because there's no confidence in the Cowboys after what the hell just happened. I have no confidence in the Eagles, but the Commanders also lost, and the Giants lost. So everybody loses out in the East except the Eagles. If I made you bet who's going to win the division, is it Commanders? Is it the Eagles? Do you still think the Cowboys are decent? What was your takeaway from the NFC East from Sunday?
If I had to put money on it right now, I'd be dumb to not bet on the Commanders because they've looked the most cohesive. They've looked the best. It does just feel like one of those divisions where you're going to see the Eagles or Cowboys just backdoor sneak in, win the division. No one's going to want to see it happen. Everyone's going to be mad about it. One of those teams is going to get hot. I don't know which one. I'm not going to say the Cowboys after last week. I'm just not saying that. But one of those teams could. I think if the Eagles were to fire Sirianni midseason, I think they're good enough as a team to actually like make it all the way and win that division. But as of today, probably Commanders, but I wouldn't be shocked if Cowboys or Eagles like sneak through somehow by the end.
Yeah, there's I don't see a ton of value right this second on these divisions because I don't really have an opinion of a team that's on the outside looking in. But I know it's going to happen. It always happens around this time where you like think a team that's 2-4, maybe as much as I hate to say it, maybe it's the Bengals. What do you think of the Bengals? Excuse me. What's your read on them? Because if they play defense like that, they can win the Super Bowl, right? I mean, they're on the short list of when they're playing an A game, it's good enough to beat everybody, but they're 2-4. Did they dig themselves too big of a hole, or are we going to be looking at the Bengals at the end of the year in the playoffs?
I think the hole is pretty deep. It's going to take a lot for them to build up out of this, but I'm sure every team in the NFL is praying that they somehow keep losing games so they don't have to play them in the playoffs. Because the pass attack is ridiculous. I mean, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, it looks like a 2-headed monster. It's just really good. And with Burrow putting the ball there consistently, he's been probably the best performing quarterback, in my opinion, outside of Lamar this year. He's just been incredible. I think the talent's there. They are a good enough team. They made the Super Bowl just a couple of years ago. Like the talent is there. It's just going to be, can they finally put it all together? And they dug themselves a really deep hole by starting out 1-4.
Yeah. Talk about betting on these games. Man, if you had the Giants, that is a brutal beat. I mean, you've been on the wrong side of a couple tough losses lately. I don't know why the guy just doesn't go down. I mean, you see it now. He goes down, the game's over. You score, Giants get a chance to score, then they get the onside kick and they have a chance. But anyway, Bengals cover. So I'm sure that helped most people at the end of the night because that's just how it is. Most of the money comes in on the favorite on Sunday Night Football.
No, yeah. Good news for me is that Darius Slayton was able to cover on that final drive for the Giants. Just got a little unlucky with Jamar Chase not getting 7 extra yards. But
when you look back on – all right, so this is kind of be our last little segment here. When you look back on gambling bets, if you're betting as often as, you and I are doing or whoever's listening, if you're making a lot of bets, you're going to have – right there, you're going to have games that you barely lose and you barely win. And that is why when I started recording here, I made it a point to tell folks that most games, most bets are 50-50 bets. And the logic behind that means it could go either way. So if you win or if you lose, you should not be betting a lot of money. And if you win, you certainly shouldn't be bragging about how great you are, because most bets are 50-50. The thing that's exciting about sports betting that we're all trying to find is that easy game. And when you hit those at a consistent level, that's when it's like maybe you do have an expertise on something. And it feels like where your bets have gone, are these overs on props on rushing yards and receiving yards, and you trying to find the right matchup. And I feel like your logic's been on point. It's been really refreshing to read. I know you got Olave got hurt on that first play, but when I read your write-ups and I'm thinking, and in full transparency, I'll never bet, even if I love what you wrote, there's something about me following just what someone else said if I didn't already think about it. But last night was the closest time I was to betting $200 on the Breece Hall props, because I can feel it in your writing when and maybe that's just my constructive criticism while we're on the air, is like sometimes if you go back and look at the bets and you read the writing behind it, you can feel a confidence level, because you don't rate your games. We're not selling anything. But I just wanted to put it out there and kind of wanted to get your feedback on it. When you're putting these bets out, do you find yourself like sometimes placing the bets that you kind of like, and then you don't want to look back and be like, man, I should have just had it? Or do you rate these games kind of the same? Would it benefit you to say, hey, this is my favorite play of the day? Kind of walk me through the first couple of, I guess we've been doing it for almost a couple months now, and kind of your own, I guess, feedback and critique of yourself.
Yeah, so for 1 p.m. games on NFL 1 p.m. games on Sunday, I always do 2 parlays. And because there's just so many games going on, I know I can find 4 picks that I at least really like. Typically, I'm able to find 2 picks that I love. And normally I'm able to make good money. This week, I just really wasn't able to find 2 picks I adored. I loved Saquon and I loved Derrick Henry. I thought they were both really good picks. Saquon burned me. Henry was a good read. And then I went with Diggs and Olave because they felt much more volatile. Diggs might just not get the ball. Olave, again, you have Spencer Rattler being quarterback. I guess he can just throw a hospital ball first pass to you. Like, this stuff could happen. But typically I am in my head ranking the picks, and I will choose picks that I can in my head. If you were to ask me to rank my picks from Sunday, I could go probably 1 through 10 on how I felt about them, because there is just this gut feeling of the logic makes sense. It makes sense based off the matchup. But also I can feel in my gut kind of, this just feels like his game. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's not something I can back up with statistics, but there are guys I look at, specifically Breece Hall, where I was like, it just feels right. Like, this feels truly like his day. And it was.
What about, you haven't made, you're doing all player props here for the NFL. Do you think that will change, or is it just, do you find it a lot easier for you when you're doing the research? Because I think at least that would be my logic, is it's easier to focus on the player. I've just been doing it the same way now for almost 15, 20 years that I haven't been able to, I can't switch over. Like, even when I put those props bets out there yesterday, betting very small money. Like, if I'm going to bet $1,000 on a game and really be invested in it, I got to bet the Chiefs. I can't bet like the props of Patrick Mahomes. Do you think that where are you at with that? Like, because I haven't seen you put out too many plays, since maybe the first week of the season. Do you think that'll change, or is it just your comfort zone to focus on one player?
So with player props, what I look at, 2 things I look at is, what do I think the game script's going to be? What's the most likely game script? With the Cowboys-Lions game specifically, because that game burned me, but stuff happens. I did see the Lions winning. I saw Montgomery being able to run well, and I saw a lot of balls going to CeeDee Lamb. Both things happened. These are things that can happen in a win or a loss for either team. These are plays that can both hit. The Lions could have been down by 2 touchdowns. Montgomery still would have probably been running the ball a good bit. It's the way they call the game. It's just what happens. I look at player props as, regardless of who I think is going to win the game, there are plays out there that I think can hit regardless of the outcome, or regardless of the plausible outcomes. Regardless
of the entertainment aspect as you're watching the game.
Oh, it's so fun. It's
more fun that way, to just root for one player, really?
Because I'm just sitting there watching the game happen. You can, like, if you've watched enough football, you can see, like, oh, it's 2nd and 8. I bet on I bet on David Montgomery to run the ball here. He just got 2 yards on the first play. They're down by 10. He's probably not getting the ball here, but like I can sit back, and then once the moment comes where he's getting the ball, you can kind of sit there and be like, please do something now.
So I spent like 15 seconds last night. It felt like trying to figure out if Dawson Knox caught the touchdown instead of Kincaid.
Oh, it's incredibly stressful because you are sitting there. You will get mad at the quarterback. You'll get mad at the play caller because you'll sit there. You'll watch the guys make their runouts. You'll see like your receiver just be completely wide open, and then the ball's a check down to the other side, and you're like, I know he's open. Like I saw him just blow by the corner. But it's fun. It's more stressful with NBA. NBA is probably out of any kind of player props. It's not as profitable. It's 10 times more fun because it is just absolutely.
Do you make lineups? Do you do the DraftKings FanDuel lineup situation?
I do player props still with it. I just expand it more. My betting grows once NBA starts. I'm betting a lot more. I enjoy it more. It's way more volatile. I recommend like if whatever you're betting on NFL, half that on NBA.
You know what? I'm glad you're breaking news here on the podcast because I am never betting NBA. I refuse. It's like written down somewhere. I'm not doing it ever. But I love basketball, and I need a reason. I actually think the NBA is going to be more entertaining this year because we'll do a good NBA preview podcast next week maybe. But they're going to officiate more like FIBA. They started doing it at the end of the second half last year because people like myself are just screaming and yelling about all the fouls. And the NBA, I actually think it's going to be a better product this year, but I can't bet on it. So thankfully, it sounds like you'll have a bunch of bets that I can sit there and root for them through you. But yeah, I started doing the DraftKings lineups. I think I've told this before with a couple of my buddies who, just don't know half as much as I know about basketball. And they were beating me every night. Like we'd sit there for hours to make the lineups. And all my logic is just out the window. It's like they were like, "Well, you don't understand like fantasy," and I'm right. I don't understand I think I understand basketball, but apparently, anyway. So, all right, let's do because I let you run here in a couple minutes, but let's kind of do I don't know, like we've already recapped basically where we're at, at the season of the NFL. Let's kind of spring it forward to a couple of bigger predictions. I'm not going to hold you to it, but feels like at this point in the season, we're about a third of the way through. Instead of just doing the playoffs, let's go best and worst. We'll start with the worst. I want to know the 1, 2, 3 draft picks. Who are the 3 worst teams in football? I will go first as you think about it for a second. To me, it's the Patriots, and it's going to be the Panthers and the Raiders. Because I somehow think the Titans will win a couple games they shouldn't win. But if you told me right now, I'm going to go Panthers, Raiders, and Patriots. Jags seem like they'll win enough games. Those will be the 3 worst teams. And then I'm going to do my Super Bowl. So you go ahead. If you had to say who are the 3 worst teams by the time this year's finished, who you got?
Jaguars, Panthers, Patriots. I get the Jaguars I have watched a lot of. I've actually been paying decent attention to them. I don't know what it is. They have drives where Trevor Lawrence looks like the best quarterback in the league, and then they have 3 where he looks like the worst. And it's just a combination of that. The defense is horrible. I don't know what they're defending. It feels incredibly dysfunctional. They're probably my worst team in the NFL right now, just because I don't think they have a path.
We always talk about the quarterbacks like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud and the difference. I mean, Hutchinson just broke his leg, but the difference between him and what Trayvon Walker is doing in Jacksonville, didn't he go to Georgia, right?
Yeah, I love Trayvon. He had a bad rookie year, and he's kind of figured it out. He is an underrated edge rusher. I'll defend him a little. He is no Aiden Hutchinson, but he is having a really good season. I still don't know why Jacksonville didn't draft Hutchinson with that first pick, though.
Yeah, Hutchinson's turned that franchise around. All right, and if you told me, let's do it like this. The teams that make the Super Bowl. My short list in the AFC, I'm not giving anybody it's either Mahomes, it's either Stroud, or it's Lamar. I don't think the Bills will have the horses to get there. The way Derrick Henry's running, I guess I'll be a homer here. And I don't like the Texans' offensive line. So I still think it's the Ravens and the Chiefs. That's probably not the hottest take in the world. Before the season started, I had the Rams as the 1 seed, but the Packers winning the NFC. I'm giving myself a little bit of a mulligan with the Rams, although they are going to get the receivers back. It wouldn't shock me if they went on a run here. The Packers, at this point, after watching last week, as I watched a lot of that game because I had the Cardinals, felt pretty good about the Packers. I don't think they're great right this second, but I think their ceiling is going to get there. I think we talked about that. Yes, I don't think I'm going to change at this point. I think it's the Ravens / Chiefs, even though I want it to be the Ravens. And I still got the Packers in there. I think the Lions' injury to Hutchinson just knocks that ceiling down 2 or 3 notches. But part of me wants to take the Bucs, to be honest with you, because I love the way they're playing. Go ahead. If you who's going to win the NFC if you had to decide right this second?
I'm gonna be a homer too. I'm gonna go Falcons and Niners. I think the Falcons can do it. I know Kirk's reputation. I get it. I think this Falcons team is more well-rounded than people give them credit for. And again, that rush attack, when used correctly, it is incredible. And I don't think the coordinator is. I think he's fine. I think he can do enough. If we can use that run attack as well as we did last week, mix it.
I'm sorry.
No. It's what was it?
I was gonna say because I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to get your read on Raheem Morris as an in-game manager because I thought, that's essentially the bet that they made because Belichick wanted that job. It's a ready-made team. The talent's there. I think everybody knew that. Now that Cousins is playing well, what's your confidence level on Morris as the coach?
In-game manager, again, he's a defensive coach. He's not the best. There are plenty of better options out there. You know what you sign up for with a defensive-minded coach. They're going to be weird about in-game play calls. They're going to be really conservative. He is just like every other defensive coach, but he's a huge culture guy. The culture is incredible in Atlanta right now. It's not been like this in a very long time. Like he has the team excited. Arthur Smith never had the team even feeling close to this. Everyone's excited. Everyone wants to play for him. The culture is so good. It gives me the same vibes as like a Dan Campbell in Detroit. He has the team behind him. That's a big factor too in like trying to make big postseason runs. That's why I'm big on Atlanta right now. And I'm a homer, but
their line, I mean, that's the one that jumped out at me when I was looking at them this morning. They started off at 3.5 against Seattle. They're only favored by 2.5 now. And Seattle is one of those teams that nobody wants to bet on. Like when a team doesn't cover 3 straight weeks in a row and they lose on national television the past 2 weeks, like Seattle does, and yet the line went down. They got to go all the way to the East Coast in a dome. What the hell is going on there? Like, why is this not a good matchup for the Falcons?
No, it is, but I don't know if Vegas knows something. That's one of those where if the line's moving the opposite way of like the way I'm thinking, I'm staying away from it. I've learned my lesson. I did it a bunch with college football. I'm not touching lines that shrink or no. I'll take it at a bump, but if it's shrinking, they know something.
Yeah, and I'll say they know something / sometimes just big money comes in on the other side. What I just like to know the reasoning behind it. So I'm a lot like you where it's like, man, if it doesn't make it, like I couldn't see the argument why somebody on a Monday would be like, I can't wait to bet the Seahawks this weekend. It's like I would have to talk myself into that by Saturday afternoon. So that one jumped out at me. Texans Packers this weekend. That should be a great game. Ravens at Bucs should be a great game. Jets at Steelers Sunday Night Football feels like an ugly game, but still should be fun to watch. Got the Chiefs 49ers. So a lot of great games. Saquon goes back to New York. Lions are playing the Vikings. Man, the more I keep scrolling through, it's like games after game after game. There's a lot of good games. So if you want to sleep in on Sunday morning and you don't want to watch the Patriots and the Jaguars at first thing,
is that the London game?
So I was wondering, what do you think the Jaguars are doing for fun this week? Like, what's the game plan if you're the coach, general manager, organizer of team activities, and you lose by whatever they lose to the Bears? They're not competitive. And now we're like, all right, you guys want to see London? Like, you guys want to ride around? Like, I don't even know what to do in London. But
I think soccer might be back. I think there might be games. I think they're on international break right now. I don't know if they're training with teams yet, but if they are, maybe catch a. I think the like lower leagues of soccer are still going. So if you want to go watch like
before the season starts, if you're a family member, Jacksonville, you're like, you know what, this could be pretty good. We got 2 games in London. Bring the family. Hopefully, we're at least decent. Instead, it's like, according to you, they're the worst team in the league. The Bears kicked their ass, and now we got to stick around for the Gerard Mayo Patriots, where like they have to win that game. Yeah. So like they go from, I don't know, for whatever reason, the winner of that game will probably win 5 straight because those are the 2 worst teams right now. But yeah, a lot of great games this weekend. You and I and Clayton will break it down, more of the college football stuff
Can't believe he's undefeated. So I can't believe he's 4-0. I just can't believe it. He just knows college football. I'm gonna start tailing his picks.
Dude, it happens all the time. I've seen this. It happens at a casino. You're not old enough yet to be just living and dying at casinos, but I had my degenerate days there, and it's like clockwork. You could sit at the craps table, the roulette table, the blackjack table. As soon as the guy is like, I don't know, I'm just here for fun. I'll put down $50. He gets blackjack 8 times in a row. Not saying Clayton doesn't know his stuff. He's not putting money on the games. Like just in
no, yeah,
that's not what he. So I'm asking him to do some extra work here, and he's just crushing it. So we'll break all that down. What's the best college football games this weekend? I haven't had a chance to look at the schedule. Tennessee, Alabama, right?
Georgia, Texas. It's Georgia, Texas this weekend.
Oh, Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee, Alabama.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one.
What time's the Georgia game?
I think we're college game day. We better be the 7 p.m. game. I should be. It's either 7 or 3:30, I think. But
7:30 at Texas. That's too far of a trip for you guys. It's like 15 hours from here. Right?
They're gonna go. Oh, they're gonna go. Not me, but other people will. We're gonna travel.
How do you guys get there? Is that a drive?
They drive. I think they drive, fly. They'll find a way. Bus. They'll find a way.
I met people when Georgia was down in Alabama, and I was just wherever I was. I talked to a few people, and she was like, "Man, I really want to go. My girlfriends are asking me to go to Alabama for the Georgia game," and I'm like, "Oh, you should go. How far is it?" We're having that conversation. They're like, "Yeah, but they want to go just to tailgate."
Yeah, no, that's what they're all going to go for. They don't want to go to the actual game. They just want to be in Austin for the game to happen. It's nuts. It's pretty funny.
Well, Austin, I mean, if anything, I think it's a perfect situation for Georgia. I know you'll, make that point when we talk about it later in the week. But Georgia as an underdog is like a dream scenario for Kirby Smart, especially against a team that's not really an SEC team. So that'll be fun. Tennessee, Alabama is the 3:30 game. All right, so I'll save your opinions for that for later in the week. What about baseball before we get out of here? I didn't really want to talk about my Dodgers getting their ass kicked, but what's your World Series prediction?
I hate New York baseball teams. That being said, I would love a Subway Series for the World Series. I think that is I hate the Mets more than any other team, but the thought of Yankees Mets being a World Series in my life, I kind of love it. I kind of love it.
2000 when it happened the first time, the Subway Series right before 9/11. Both teams haven't been good consistently for a long time.
There's no guess though. I think the Dodgers are probably going to make it out unless their pitching is just done now. Unless it was just a hot streak and now they're just dead. But
I think Buehler's going to be great tomorrow night. Buehler against Severino. I think the winner of that game is going to win the series because if the Mets win that game, it's going to be rocking there for the next 2 games. But I think Buehler gets it done. That'll be the game tomorrow. Guardians, Yankees tonight. If you're watching, if you're betting, good luck. I'll be back in the morning. This was good, JMart. We went through. I kept you a little later than I was supposed to, but it's fun. Anything else that I missed or anything else you wanted to get off your chest?
No, I think it's all good. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, looking forward to another week. Our records are getting better. Hell, if we're winning 65, 70%, then I'd shut down the podcast and just move and just gamble every day. So that's not the goal. I'm trying to get myself to close to 60% by the time the season's finished. We're getting there. So, all right, I'll be back in the morning, and I'll see you. I think we'll probably do it Friday. So I'll see you Friday. Good luck to everybody today, and have a good day, man.
All right, see you.